Hey everybody, Josh with Cripple Concepts here with you again. Today I'm going to show you how I hand tap things. I'm going to start with what I tap most often with, which is my little tapping jig that I built here. It's a old drill press stand that I picked up at an auction. Try to turn that so you can see a little bit more what's going on. So I just cut off the top of this, the back post. It's got a nice cast iron table on the bottom, and then I just use a little drill press vise. Well, I say a little, pretty stout actually, cast iron. I feel weird not looking down into the camera here. Cast iron drill press vise that isn't precise enough for the CNC mill or anything, but works great for this. I've got a piece in here that I'm going to actually tap with 5/16 coarse tap, and the nice part with this is that I can use two flute taps. I'm just rubbing a solution here of Tap Magic and WD-40. I like that combination for both cutting. I used to use that on the little lathe that I sold. And then I basically crank the handle here at the top. I machined a couple holes in this arm here. It's adjustable on the back for height. And then I have plastic bushing in here that allows the actual shaft here that I tap with to come down. This is a quick disconnect. I'll show actually after I'm done tapping how these quick disconnects work. That's really handy because someday I'll show you power tapping on the mill. I don't like to do power tapping as much because I don't have good positional accuracy on my spindle of my mill. If you get off on your timing of your spindle RPM and your Z-axis travel, you end up snapping off taps, and snapping off taps sucks. So I end up hand tapping almost everything. It's just easier. Once I get started, I often will just slightly loosen the vise itself, so there's a little bit of play in the piece. I don't bolt this down at all. I don't bolt the vise down. I find that it actually works better if I let it float a little bit. Once I get it going straight into the hole, I let that float just a little bit. I have a bolt down here on the front that is also free to move, but it catches the vise from moving too far, holds it in place, and then the material can kind of slide in and out of the vise a little as needed to help hold the tap perfectly perpendicular to the hole and keep it going straight. I'm not gonna lie and tell you that this is super easy. I just repositioned my chair because this is it takes some muscle. I don't know how new this particular tap is either. Older taps obviously start to get dull, and that becomes a problem. I like to go about a quarter turn backwards for every half turn forward I go, and I just muscle it. My handle is just a really long bolt into a shaft collar on the top. I've thought about, and I still might, add a pneumatic motor to this, or a electric impact gun or something of that sort. I haven't done that yet. I don't know that I ever will. I could do this in the drill press. I could do this on the mill. But when I'm only doing one or two parts, it's easier to just do it manually, fight through, muscle it through, and not take a chance of snapping off a tap, not spend a lot of time figuring out what I want to run for my feeds and speeds. And if I was doing even 10 holes all the same, I'd probably power tap them on the mill. If I was doing a bunch of up to 5/16, I'd probably do on the mill. I did some 3/8 holes. I'll hold that up to the camera for a second while I give myself a little break from turning. This is another one of the same part I'm working on now, and this lower hole here is tapped at 3/8/16. I did those earlier, and I gotta tell you, doing an inch of material at 3/8/16, that'll wear me out. That's about my limit physically. These ones I'm doing now are, the 5/16 is easier, and there's actually a, you can see I just broke through the other side there, which I obviously didn't just tap that through the full 1.5 thickness. There's a hole. These are parts for the bumper assembly on my footrest I'm building for my new power chair. So let me just crank this out and show you that hole. You can see that slides really smooth. This isn't a high precision bushing. It's not a bad bushing, it's just nothing super precise. I want something that would just be easy to use. Let's see if I can get this up in the camera where you can see it. So there's the hole I just tapped. Can't tell how well that's actually focusing in the camera. Sometimes I hate this autofocus. If you can't see it, you'll have to believe me, that is tapped. And that's going into this hole that'll slide over a shaft on my chair. And then this is just for a set screw on the side. These still have some more machine work to be done to them, but that's sort of the hole. So that's how I do it when I use the, well, what do I want to call this, tapping fixture, tapping jig. And they sell these, but quite frankly, they want way too much damn money for them. At the time that I made this, I think I bought the stand for $3 at an auction. Had it around for months before I did anything with it. I knew what I wanted to do, but just didn't get around to it. And then once I did it, it was the cat's ass. It works great. And now to release these, I just grab on both sides of this knurled piece and push up, and that releases it. So that's free. So I'm not an expert on these, and I didn't look it up before shooting the video, but these are what they call Bill's style quick disconnect tap holders. And this is one style where it has the balls at the top and no tangs around where my thumb's resting there. And then I have another style has a ring groove at the top and then a little tang there right above my knuckle on my finger. And so I buy universal tapping heads. This one is just a rigid tapping head that I did a little adapter up to the shaft so I could run it manually. I actually think I had to cut off the shaft. I don't remember what it even was. For the mill, I have a tension compression tapping head, and I actually have a tension compression torque head that compensates a little bit for that speed and feed issue I was talking about. I still don't only like doing it occasionally, unless I'm doing a bunch of holes, and then I dial in my recipe and I'm good to go. But I buy the universal one so they can use these ball style or the groove style holders, just because I've bought the holders at auctions. I bought them from Tools and Gizmos, Tools and Gizmos, I think that's the name of the website. That I bought a lot of my tooling when I first started out. So that's how I do when I can. That works for small parts, that works for parts that'll fit in the vise. When I have a part that won't work for that, like this tube that's clamped in the vise, then I go to the traditional tap wrench. Now for this guy, I'm using the big tap wrench. I'm not using one of those little tiny T-handles. I'm using the bigger guy. This doesn't have a brand name on it. I don't even remember where I got it, but I really like this one. It really holds the tap in pretty tight. As it fell out as I grabbed it, and I say it holds it in tight. If I really want to hold it in tight, there's a hole on one side of the handle that I can use to stick a screwdriver through and really torque it down. But most of the time I just tighten it up with my fingers and call it good. With my fingers, what am I talking about? I use my mouth. So this is actually a 9/16 tap. This is a pretty big guy, but it's a 3-fluter, which helps hold it straight. It's also got a lot of taper at the end to really help guide it in. I'm using this for these tubes because I didn't have to drill the tubes this way. The ID was 0.510 and the minor diameter on a 9/16 18 thread is, I want to say, like 0.508. So it works. I probably should have reamed these just slightly. It would have made it a lot easier. But I want these bolts to fit really well when these go on my chair. These are also for the footrest on my chair. I did start this one earlier, so that's why I'm able to stick it in. But as you can see, it's not straight. I've only got about a thread and a half on each side. So I'll show you how I actually get these in straight. Now, most people know there's a little hole on the back side of a tap. I'll see if I can show it to you on one of these. And of course, the two I got to show you don't have it. Most taps have a little hole in the top, so you can put them in a drill press or something to put pressure on the back and hold them straight. I use my chin though. Gotta be careful of the beard hair, it gets caught sometimes. But I find that I can really control how hard and how straight. Got a beard hair in it. Ooh, that pinched. Got a little beard hair in there for a minute. So much of this is feel. I don't know how anybody uses a mill or a lathe that I ever use in a manual machine. I'm actually looking into getting a manual lathe because I still struggle with my CNC lathe, because there's something about the feel and getting the feel of what it's supposed to be like. Once you get that feel down, then you are able to recognize when something's not going right with the CNC setup. So I got that started. I'm going to put, again, lots of lube. Lube is your friend on this. Cutting oil and lube. And that's where I like the WD-40 mixed with the tapping fluid. I find it's a little bit stickier than just tapping fluid itself. And I like that on the little mini lathe. I like that on taps. I find that the combination works pretty darn well. And this now is steel I'm tapping into. I was tapping aluminum with a tapping jig. This is steel I'm tapping into. And I've got to really get into it. I mean, I'm using my cheek here on one side, my chin. I use whatever's available to me to make it work. And good chip evacuation is important. So on this steel, I back off a quarter turn every quarter turn. I really work the chips out. And every few revolutions on this, I'll actually undo it all the way, blow any chips out, just to really clear it out. And I'm going to be tapping this to beyond the back side of this tap. It's undercut. So I'm going to go that full length so I have lots of adjustment when I put this on my wheelchair. So this will take me a while. I'll probably take 20 to 40 minutes for this one tube. So I wouldn't do this every day. I would have to charge a customer a lot to do this on a set of tubes. Or what I would actually do if I was doing this in production is I would put this tube in a lathe, put the tap in the tailstock, and I would just tap it. But I'm only doing a couple of them, and I don't have that setup. That's part of why I want a manual lathe also. It's so I can just chuck these up in the manual lathe. And but I got to have a through hole big enough. These are 3/4 inch, so I need at least a 3/4 through hole in a lot of the old Atlases and South Bends and stuff like that that are small enough that I like what I'd want. They don't have a big enough through hole on the spindle bore. But anyway, this is how I tap, and it takes me a while. It's a lot of grunt. Keeping it straight is important, and it's a whole lot harder when you're using this tap wrench than when you're using this tapping jig to keep it straight. So I use the tapping jig as often as I possibly can, and only when I absolutely have to do I use this regular hand tap. And I do have the smaller ones. If I'm doing like a 1032 or something, I'll use the smaller style hand tap. But for these big guys, I got to use the big wrench. So appreciate you watching. I'll keep the videos coming. Not weekly anymore. It's just too hard. Hopefully I'll get back to where I'm doing 1 or 2 a week. But right now I've just been trying to catch up. So thanks for watching. We'll be back as soon as we can. Thanks.